hippies, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about Manson's music. We're going to actually, Axl Rose and Slash, they're going to talk about Manson's music. Yeah.
Rose's Black Leather from the Spaghetti Incident. Back to the phones we go. Blair is in Robertsonville, North Carolina, listening to WRDU 106 in Raleigh. Blair, you're on with Axl and Slash.
Hey, I'm number one fan of y'all. I had a question. Are y'all planning to pull the Charles Manson track off your album?
Yeah. It's a conversation that I saved from way back ago. And we're going to have it right here today on the back porch, because they had people call in to a radio station to talk to them about music. And some of them called to talk about Manson's music. Plus, they used to talk about music all the time on television, on them television programs that were supposed to be about music. Yeah, one of them was called Confidential. And on there's some people on that thing that were saying that Manson made an album with Dennis Wilson.
The 60s created numerous rock legends. Bob Dylan, The Who, The Rolling Stones, and Charles Manson.
We're going to find out about that too. All here today on the Back Porch Tapes. It's what you call WBPT, and we talk about that guy in Cincinnati, and I'm on fire. Call me Fever.
No, but we've also been notified by a fan that if we do pull the song, he'll sue us and Geffen Records for $1 per album sold as of the date that we pull the song. You know, he'll file this in federal court. But we don't have plans of pulling it as of now. And you're in Raleigh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Hi, Jennifer.
There was a time where we were planning on pulling it because of the fact that it was, I don't know, the messages were all crossed.
Yeah.
As far as to what we were really doing. I mean, basically all we did was do a track that had something to do lyrically with the band. I mean, or, you know.
I like the lyrics of the song. I also thought it was something that people hadn't heard, and it was a missing part of the puzzle, and almost everything about Charles Manson has been public, but this was something that wasn't public really on a big scale to my knowledge, and just thought that people would be interested in hearing it. But, you know, even one of the victim's son, who's getting money supposedly, was talking about people worshiping Charles Manson, and I was like getting a vibe that people are trying to paint a picture that I worship Charles Manson now. It's exactly for me the opposite of that.
It's sort of a parody almost, you know.
He's a pop cartoon icon of absolutely how far off the edge you can go, which, you know, I don't have any desire to go that far.
Really weird, because when the song was done and it was recorded and released, there was no attention drawn to it, and all the attention that has been given it so far has come from the media that's been opposing it.
Because they make the bucks off that.
And it's ridiculous. So at this point, I'm just like, screw you, whatever. Yeah. You know, it's typical. We've been going through this since we started, so I'm not fazed.
And as Axl had mentioned, I guess the royalties to this song go to the son of one of the victims of the Manson murders. They don't go to Charles Manson.
Right.
Yes, but then I did hear also about someone else saying that Charles doesn't have the copyright on that. He does, and he wants the money. So, you know, as long as Charlie's not getting it, that's cool.
Yeah. It sounds.
We don't know what this guy is all about.
Yeah, it is an unlisted track on the album. You won't find it, but it's at the very end. It's called "Look at Your Game Girl," Guns N' Roses on Rockline.
My interest in Manson at the time was to try to get him in the studio because I thought he had talent, and I think he did have talent, but he threw it away.
When this album of Manson's came out, he called me on the telephone. He told me about an interview that they wanted to do with Rolling Stone in France. But he wanted to also tell me that he didn't know if he could get me in on this interview because people just don't like me.
And it probably comes from them spraying for bugs. They already said.
So are you open for some people to come down and interview you?
Oh, certainly, sure.
Well, I'll see if I can't manipulate. You know, a lot of people don't like you.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. If they don't like me, they don't.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't like me too. You know, so I know what it is.
I know there's.
I understand. Most of us This call and your telephone number will be recorded and monitored. If we can compromise with each other, we can do a lot more together than we do pulling apart.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that, too. That's what I just wrote Grey Wolf and told him, you know, you don't have to like me and whatever, but...
So in this next clip, it talks about, it's the one that came from, I think it came from, I don't know what channel it was on. It was on cable. It was on one of the music channels. I believe it was on VH1. I don't know. I can't remember. It was in the 90s. And they were talking about Charlie Manson making an album with Dennis Wilson. And there's several people on there. Two guys on there that I met. I met Legs McNeil. I met him down at El Coyote once. And John Ansnell's on here as well, and I also met him down at El Coyote once. So, yeah, they're pretty stand-up guys. So let's listen to what they have to say about, and a couple other people were in this too, about what they have to say about Manson and Dennis Wilson making an album together. Wow. Wouldn't that be a cool album to listen to?
What people may not know is that Charles Manson was just a wannabe rock star on the make, whose failure to hit the big time may have driven him and his family into a bloody madness.
He had something. He could have been something legitimately. He could have been a movie star. He could have been a rock star. You know, he could have been a successful musician. He had that thing that people call talent.
In August 1969, 7 people were brutally slain in what's known as the Tate-LaBianca murders. 5 people, including pregnant actress Sharon Tate, were killed in a mansion on Cielo Drive in Los Angeles. The other 2 victims, Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, were attacked a few miles away in their Waverly Drive home the next night. Though the LAPD first believed the crimes were unrelated, it was soon discovered that both were the handiwork of a hippie commune headed by Charles Manson. The world watched in shock as Manson and his makeshift family showed no remorse at the trial. It seemed as though the murders were the random acts of a lunatic and his brainwashed followers. But the truth may not be what it seemed. The Manson murders may have been linked to his aspirations of becoming a rock and roll star.
There's no question about it. Music was a very big part of his life, and he also was a murderer, of course, but he may not have been a murderer if he had been accepted into the rock music industry.
Long before he murdered, Charlie Manson did make music, and he was accepted by many in the rock and roll community, working his way across the West Coast, gaining fans deep within the industry.
He first hung out in Haight-Ashbury and then came to L.A. and settled in Topanga Canyon, where a lot of rock and roll musicians were living.
Rock archivist Michael Oakes actually moved into Manson's Topanga house shortly after Charlie and the family had moved out.
When I first came out from New York, I wanted the antithesis of New York, so I wanted the most rustic existence there was. So I moved to Topanga, which was a very hip community at the time. I mean, Buffalo Springfield lived there, Neil Young lived there.
While Manson was making strong connections in the Los Angeles music scene, he was also building up his following with young, impressionable girls.
I've read the parole hearings and the testimonies of all the women who were convicted along with Charlie as being part of the murders, and the first thing that they always say about meeting Charlie is that they heard this guy singing and they were attracted to his voice.
Manson would play guitar, and he would just basically go down the line of people one by one. He would zero in on one of them, and he would size them up, and he would be playing, he'd be making stuff up as he's playing, and it would all be applicable to whoever he's playing it to, even though they could be a total stranger. He was quick at that, and of course that would more than impress people.
Eventually, Manson struck pay dirt when his girls ran into Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson. Wilson had influential connections that Manson needed to launch his music career. Little did Wilson know when he brought home a couple of hippie girls what would soon be in store for him.
And I guess he had picked up some girls hitchhiking one time and took them to his house, and then a few days later he came home and his whole house was full of like 20 girls and all these guys, and this really intense, really short guy who was playing music in the middle of his living room surrounded by all these girls who turned out to be Manson.
Manson had moved his family in, and there was a lot of frivolity and fun, and they were making marijuana cookies and everything, so Wilson thought it was kind of a fun situation, and they ended up living with him for a couple months. This is in the early spring and summer of 1968.
And then Dennis was totally fascinated with their music and the whole thing, the sex and the drugs and the music. And he basically became part of the Manson family.
But then it got kind of heavy after that. Manson started hitting up Wilson for money. He said it eventually cost him about $100,000. He gave him about 9 or 10 of his gold records, the wardrobe, paintings off the wall. One member of the Manson family totaled out Dennis's brand new Mercedes-Benz. He hadn't gotten insurance on it yet.
But despite these incidents, Dennis still tried to help his friend out by arranging to record some of Charlie's songs.
Then Dennis Wilson took the Manson family to Brian Wilson's studio at his house, and there was apparently a fully produced record made, and it's never surfaced.
Some of the songs in the album that Manson had recorded for Wilson had words in it like death, blood, murder. So I asked Dennis, is there any way to get a copy of that tape? Because I might be able to use it circumstantially to connect Manson with these murders. And Dennis told me, he said, words to the effect that the vibrations in that album and in that music was not of this world, and I destroyed the tape.
Although the Beach Boys never released any of those recordings, they did record one of Charlie's songs.
Charlie ended up on the Beach Boys record because he wrote a song called Cease to Exist. Dennis took that to the rest of the Beach Boys and they rewrote it as a song that came out on the 2020 album called Never Learn Not to Love.
Charlie wrote the song as a meditation song, but the lyrics were changed by the Beach Boys because apparently they thought it was too controversial to say submission is a gift, give it to your brother. Submission is a gift, give it to your lover. And cease to resist was in place of cease to exist.
They changed a lot of the lyrics around, which really, really upset Charlie. Charlie was, word is your bond.
This incident so incited Charlie that he threatened Dennis Wilson. This may have been when Charlie's dream ended and Los Angeles' nightmare began.
Well, there's a story that Charlie mailed to or gave Dennis Wilson a bullet.
It was kind of a symbolic threat to Dennis, saying, I'm going to get you. That's one of the reasons why Dennis Wilson cleared out of his own house. Dennis Wilson left the family and just moved. Just left him in his house with his Rolls Royces and his cars and his clothes and just split because he, I think he was afraid of Charlie.
Wilson was terrified at the time that Manson was arrested. And I spoke to Wilson, and I wanted him to testify. There were certain things I thought he might be able to say, but he refused to testify, just terrified.
But Dennis Wilson wasn't the only person associated with the Beach Boys who may have had a right to be frightened. The other person, the band's producer, Terry Melcher.
Terry Melcher was the son of Doris Day and a very well-known record producer.
And he had done the Byrds and a lot of surf music, and he somehow heard about the Manson families playing music at the Spawn Ranch, and he went out to hear them and apparently gave them some money and told them they were incredible and that he wanted to do something.
Terry Melcher had offered, in collaboration with the Beach Boys, had offered Charlie a 2-record deal as well as a documentary that they were going to make.
But Manson later said Melcher reneged on the deal. And this is where the tie into the murders becomes more clear. The Tate house, which was being rented by Sharon Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski, had recently been occupied by Terry Melcher.
I worked at Columbia Records at the time in publicity, and I actually ran into a lot of the Manson people at Columbia when they were waiting for Terry Melcher, and they would be in the lobby. Terry Melcher was terrified, rightfully so. Terry Melcher believed that when they went to Sharon Tate's house, that they were looking for him, not for Sharon Tate.
In my opinion, that Tate residence symbolized the establishment of Manson, particularly the establishment's rejection of him. And on the night of the Tate murders, along with other motives, I think he was viciously using his minions to strike back at the establishment. People have said, well, you know, if Wilson and Melcher had recorded Manson and really made a bigger effort, these murders would never have taken place.
If the Tate murders were tied to the music industry through Terry Melcher, why were the innocent LaBiancas killed? According to Manson's record producer, Phil Kaufman, the LaBianca murders were also tied to the music world. Kaufman and Manson met in prison in 1967, 2 years before the murders, while a struggling musician was serving a 10-year sentence for forgery.
He was coming across the prison yard playing the guitar and singing, and I thought he was pretty good, and I had been periphery on the music business and in film, and we got to talking, and I, talked to him. I said, when you get out, maybe, I'll introduce you to some people.
After Kaufman got out in '68, he and Manson worked on some recordings together. Kaufman and his friends frequently partied on Waverly Drive, next door to the LaBiancas. Legend has it that Leno LaBianca complained about the loud music to the wrong man. But Kaufman believes that Charles Manson wasn't looking to get even for a complaint about loud music. Similar to the Terry Melcher connection, Kaufman and Manson had recently argued over a bad music deal.
The night of the LaBianca murders, I think they were coming looking for me, because they knew the neighborhood. That's why they chose the LaBiancas, because they were the next-door neighbors to the house that we lived on, Waverly. And I think they came looking for me or people in that house. There's nobody home. So unfortunately, the LaBiancas were, and the rest is history.
After more than 30 years in prison, Manson's dream of becoming a musician still persists. From his prison cell, he still manages to record his music.
Well, as to the Manson recording in prison, could be about 20 hours on audio tape of just Manson with a guitar in his cell.
Music really worked for him. To this day, he still does his music. That's his way of getting across.
And Manson's influence on music is felt far beyond the walls of his cell. Hard rockers Guns N' Roses recorded their own version of Manson's Look at Your Game Girl. And in a disturbing twist, shock rockers Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson, who named himself after the killer, have recorded songs at the scene of the Tate crime. Charles Manson will go down in history as one of the world's most deranged killers. But the music world will never know what could have been.
I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's pouring down rain outside. So I thought it was a good time to talk about music. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something from that too. Hope you haven't seen that before, because that's some old stuff right there. Some old stuff that I have in the vaults of the Backporch tapes.
Keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I walk the line.
Yep.
Don't walk that line, man.
Yep.
I walk my own line, man. I don't cross somebody else's dreams, man.
Yeah, at times I probably have in my life, but I really don't practice that. I don't want to crush anybody else's spirit. That's not me. I'm more of a person to prop people up than to push them down.
Yeah, I get a lot of good mail about you, man.
Yeah, that's good.
A lot of people say you take them over to the ranch and show them around.
Yeah.
And you haven't had no bad to say about nobody, man.
I've taken probably a couple hundred, probably 500 people over there. Never charged nobody a nickel. It's all my time. Tell them places that you've been.
This call and your telephone number will be recorded and monitored.
Yeah.
So, do you ever hear anything about Vincent Bullio's?
Yeah, like I was telling you, I was in another television show, and they wanted to get him on there too, but they couldn't get him because they said he was in some nursing home and he was about ready to die. Evidently had some sort of, the people with the family wouldn't tell him, but they think that he had some sort of cancer or something, and he's probably not got that much longer to live. So.
Well, he's one guy, he's one guy. Thomas Jefferson said to Alexander Hamilton, I have the right to nothing that another one man has the right to take away.
It's kind of ironic.
Vincent Bugliosi has stood against everybody against me.
All his life. That's the only thing Vincent Bugliosi's famous for.
Well, I thought when the guy got ready to die, he tried to be honest with himself, man. I mean, considering he's going to go before he had to live with himself for a long time. I mean, looks like he said, well, hey, man, I made a mistake here.
You know what?
Let that guy go.
You know what? He actually has, but he only does that to the people that kiss his ass, like Gypsy. He was like, oh, Gypsy, she wasn't involved. Manson had her brainwashed. Or that Barbara Hoyt. Oh, Barbara.
Is there some point in a man's life when he has to be real with himself?
Yeah, there has to be. But maybe he does. Maybe.
I mean, if there is such a word as honor,
come on,
it must go along with the word God.
Deep down inside.
There is a God and there is honor. It should be some point of redeeming what he did to everybody. Look at what he invented, serial killer.
I know, deep down inside, he can't believe that shit himself. He can't believe it.
That's all the guys that do is murder, man. Didn't abide by his own country's rules. I don't know. I'm stupid.
It's.
If I had any brain, I'd have been rich. I'd have been everything by now.
You pretty much, you know what? Money doesn't mean shit in this world. It's like you've said before. You had it and you lose it. It's just like it doesn't do shit for me. I'll tell you that. Neither does anything really in this world. There's nothing really that. I don't know. You're the most famous person in the world. I'll tell you that. You're one of the most famous people. You could mention your name in Iraq and they'll know who the hell you are. You can mention your name in Japan. You can mention your name in bumfucked Egypt and they'll know who Charles Manson is. It all came from that. You know what? I don't think a lot of it came from that though. Some of it probably came from when people started watching your interviews. They probably dig you because you're very entertaining on them interviews, and I'm sure a lot of people became fans of yours by watching you on television, opposed to the Helter Skelter book. But there's Helter Skelter. It's pretty big.
Yeah, they won't let me on TV now.
Now they're afraid of you.
They're scared.
They know how entertaining you are. You're better than what's on TV.
Yeah.
I'd watch it. I'd watch it. I grew up Atwa. You don't grow up in Ohio and not grow up Atwa. Shit, I shit in the outhouse, carried water.
You really woke up? Yeah. Okay. You have 60 seconds remaining. Yeah, you really woke up to it, man.
Yeah, you have to when you're there.
It's not real. Huh?
You got to wake up to it when you need a drink of water and there ain't none running out of the spigot. You got to go carry it from the closest spring, which might be 5 miles away.
Yeah, but see, I knew that 50 years ago.
I did that myself, and it wasn't 50 years ago. It was only like 40-some years ago, but I did it. Me and my mom carried water.
30 seconds remaining. I still don't know enough to be moved by it. And what you can know a truck is coming, but if you don't see it, you're not moving out of the way.
Yeah.
You gotta wait till you can see it, and then when you see it, you go, oh.
Then it's too late.
You get out of the way.
Then it's too late.
Well, people haven't seen that way.
So until next time, we decide to pull something else out of the vaults, or we go on some excursion, which I think I just might do. The next time we come back to the Back Porch Tapes, I'm going to show you about an excursion that has to do with Charlie Manson. Yeah, let's just put that out there right now into the atmosphere. And until then, peace.